Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine for a second a job where your entire public identity is just, well, meticulously crafted by other people every single day.
Right, a career where you're constantly reinventing yourself just for the camera.
Exactly. You're navigating these very real and sometimes incredibly hazardous workplace environments, only to have your legacy eventually reduced to this bizarre, almost gamified collection of internet rumors.
And crowdsourced statistics, it is a wild trajectory.
It really is. And that is the journey we're taking today. We're doing a deep dive into the complex, highly lucrative, and honestly pretty intense Japanese mature entertainment industry of the early 2000s.
Which was a massive, massive booming market at the time.
Well, absolutely voracious. And we're looking at this whole ecosystem through the lens of one of its most prominent stars, a performer named Ami Ayukawa.
The stack of sources we're working from today it presents a wildly eclectic mix, which in itself kind of tells a story.
Yeah, you've got these serious historical documents sitting right next to absolute nonsense.
Exactly. On one hand, we have encyclopedic industry databases, serious career retrospectives, and some very sobering journalistic exposes from that era.
Real documented journalism.
Right, but then sitting right next to those realities, we have these incredibly strange, crowdsourced internet gossip pages and FAQs that were generated years after her career actually ended.
So our mission today is to look beyond the screen. We want to contrast the fantastical, highly produced characters that she played with the harsh realities of the actual production sets she worked on.
And ultimately, we want to examine that bizarre digital footprint she left behind.
Which really just makes you wonder how anyone survives that kind of psychological whiplash. Because when you dive into the world of adult entertainment and intimate cinema, especially during that early 2000s boom in Japan, the gap between the polished media product and the human being making it is staggering.
It's a chasm, really.
It is. And I want you, the listener, to keep that in mind as we go through this. Just think about the sheer mental agility it takes to navigate a space where the line between character and reality is constantly blurred, and entirely for the sake of the audience's fleeting gratification.
To really grasp the scale of this, we have to look at the historical context of the era she stepped into.
Let's set the scene.
So Ami Ayukawa debuted in November of 1999. This was with the Tiffany label.
Right.
She was right around 18 years old at the time, having been born on February 18th, 1981, somewhere near the border between western Tokyo and the Kanagawa prefecture.
And the late 90s, early 2000s, this was a pivotal time for Japanese media in general.
Absolutely. You had the transition from VHS to DVD accelerating rapidly, which meant production cycles were speeding up. The market demand for new talent, new faces, and increasingly niche content was just unquenchable.
And she didn't just enter that machine, she absolutely skyrocketed to the top of it. By the early 2000s, she wasn't just another actress trying to get noticed. She was widely dubbed an industry queen.
Which is not a title they threw around lightly.
No, not at all. If you look at the fan forums and the industry retrospectives from back then, you see these devoted followers referring to her as the best actress in history for this specific medium.
And in an industry that churns out literally thousands of titles a year, holding a title like that means you are doing something fundamentally different than everyone else on the shelf.
Exactly. So what was she doing differently?
Well, the sources point to very specific reasons why she captured that level of attention. In a medium that, often relies heavily on rigid formulas and generic portrayals, she was highly regarded for her energetic passion.
She brought real emotion to it.
Deep emotional engagement on camera. She brought a level of intensity to her performances that resonated with audiences who were looking for something a bit more compelling than the standard fare.
She really committed to the bit.
She did. She became particularly well known for her willingness to play intensely submissive characters, bringing a psychological depth to niche character acting that fans clearly, strongly responded to.
And the sheer variety of those roles is where my mind just gets blown. The surreal nature of her filmography requires an incredible amount of versatility.
Oh, the costume work alone.
Right. We are talking about heavy, heavy cosplay work. Just to give you an idea of the grueling schedule and the constant persona shifting required, in the May 2001 release titled Cospera, she didn't just play one character.
Not even close.
She played a nurse, a female ninja, a bunny, and a Barbie doll, all in one single production.
You just have to imagine the constant hair, makeup, and wardrobe changes, let alone the mental shifts required to actually act out those different tropes.
And then you jump to a December 2001 release called Splash, And she is playing a literal mermaid seeking love.
A mermaid.
A mermaid. I want you to think about the psychological toll of that daily routine, constantly reinventing yourself for the camera.
It highlights the extreme fantasy element of this sector of the entertainment world and the immense pressure placed on the performers to actually sell that fantasy.
One day, you were on set playing a daydreaming office worker, having to hit all those subtle notes of corporate boredom. And the next day, you were wearing a tail, pretending to be a mythical sea creature.
The producers in this era were trying to hit every conceivable demographic and niche interest. They relied on performers like her to embody those fantasies convincingly, no matter how absurd the premise.
Wearing a mermaid tail on a cold studio set while trying to convey genuine emotion is a very specific and exhausting skill set. The mental agility required to switch gears like that day in and day out. How do you even keep track of who you are when your entire work week is spent being 5 different people?
It requires a tremendous amount of stamina. And to understand how she navigated all of this, we need to examine the actual ecosystem of the Japanese mature entertainment world itself.
Because it wasn't all just one big monolith.
Not at all. It was, and largely still is, divided into 2 main tiers, and they operate very differently. On one side, you have the pro studios.
The big guys.
Right. Massive companies like Alice Japan and AKXA, they have higher budgets, legitimate catering, structured schedules, polished production values. They generally offer a more glossy, mainstream product within the mature media space.
And on the other side.
You have the indie studios. These are labels like Moody's and Wants Factory.
And the indie studios are a completely different beast, right? Lower budgets, faster turnarounds.
Far grittier, much more experimental, and operating on absolute shoestring budgets. An indie shoot might just be a handheld camera in a rented apartment with a skeleton crew and very little oversight.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Ami Ayukawa didn't just stay in the glossy, protected lane of the big pro studios.
No, she did.
She navigated both of these worlds seamlessly. She would shoot a highly polished, big-budget feature for a pro studio one week and then go work on a gritty, independent production the next. She had the versatility to cross over in a way that many performers just couldn't pull off.
That crossover ability is rare. Performers usually get pigeonholed by their aesthetic or their niche. But her adaptability allowed her to take on much darker, more intense thematic acting as her career progressed.
She wasn't just doing lighthearted cosplay anymore.
Exactly. For example, she was chosen to star in the Witch Hunt series, which started releasing in August of 2001. This revolved around a complex psychological premise, essentially asking the audience, is she an angel or a witch?
The narrative framework of that series was incredibly intense. Our sources note that this is where the content shifted heavily into extreme power dynamic scenarios.
Right.
To comply with the narrative demands of the studio, she was enduring grueling, extreme on-set scenarios and scripted mistreatment for the sake of the story.
Which is incredibly demanding.
The physical and emotional toll of shooting scenes designed to look like torture and humiliation, even when tightly choreographed, has to be immense. You are still putting your body and mind through the physiological motions of extreme distress.
Which brings us to a crucial and very dark turning point in our deep dive today. We've been talking about the polished final products, the DVDs, the elaborate costumes, the scripted narratives.
Fantasy.
Yes, the fantasy. But that intense drive to push boundaries inevitably collided with a very dark reality behind the camera. Stardom did not equate to protection.
We have to talk about what happened in late 2001. Because we have a very serious piece of journalism in our stack of sources.
We do.
In October of that year, an interview with Ayukawa was originally published in the magazine Asahi Jino, and the implications of it were significant enough that it was actually reprinted in the mainstream newspaper, the Mainichi Shimbun.
It was part of a much larger expose on the severe mishaps and dangers lurking within the Japanese mature entertainment industry.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Actually, we connect this to the bigger picture. Her experience highlights a massive systemic failure in workplace safety and consent protocols during that era. She went on the record to describe what she called her most horrific experience in the profession. She was scheduled to film an intense, unscripted assault scene. She explicitly stated that during the pre-shoot meeting, the director assured her she would be completely safe.
he promised her that precautions were in place.
Yes. So she went into the scene, trusting her workplace leadership, believing the boundaries were set.
But the scene went entirely off the rails. It was a complete and utter betrayal of that trust.
A total breakdown of safety.
According to her own account to the journalists, Once the camera started rolling, her scene partner suddenly grabbed her by the hair. He dragged her across the floor and then began choking her with so much force that she could barely breathe.
She stated she was nearly unconscious.
She was crying. She was actively screaming for help. And yet, not a single person on the crew, not the director, not the camera operators, no one intervened to stop the on-set physical abuse. She was left battered, black and blue, with actual bruises.
Just think about the bystander effect happening on that set. The hierarchy in these ununionized, unregulated spaces is absolute. The director holds all the power, and if the director doesn't call cut, the camera keeps rolling.
Regardless of the very real human suffering happening in the frame.
It is a profoundly disturbing account of workplace mistreatment. And the most chilling part of the entire ordeal is what happened immediately after the assault finally ended.
This part is just sickening. After ignoring her screams, after letting her be physically abused on a set she was explicitly told was safe, the director came over to her and said, "That was a good scene. It almost looked like the real thing."
That quote is devastating.
It is.
It completely shatters the illusion of the media we're discussing. When a consumer watches a piece of intimate cinema, the implicit contract is that what they're seeing is a performance. A consensual, safe illusion created by professionals.
But this horrifying anecdote exposes the predatory practices that can exist behind the scenes.
It highlights the absolute lack of labor protections and the extreme vulnerability of young performers operating in unregulated entertainment spaces. The director prioritized the realism of the footage over the basic safety and humanity of his lead actress.
It makes you look at that entire industry queen title completely differently.
Yeah.
The cost of that title was enduring a system that viewed her safety as entirely secondary to the product.
Right.
Which makes the next part of our source material so jarring. Because what makes that trauma even harder to swallow is how completely it has been erased by time and the internet.
It's been overwritten.
Completely. If you look her up today, you don't find the survivor of a grueling industry. You find a bizarre, gamified profile.
Okay.
We have this source material that is literally titled Ayukawa FAQs 2026. It is a modern, crowdsourced gossip page.
The contrast is just jarring. It is a textbook example of how the internet flattens complex human beings into mere data points.
It's like they're building a profile for a video game character.
Exactly. The level of hyper-specific, geeky statistics her fans are still tracking decades after her debut speaks to a very strange kind of parasocial relationship.
This site doesn't just list her age, it calculates it down to the hour. It proudly proclaims that she is exactly 394,656 hours old.
Who even calculates that?
I have no idea. It lists her height precisely at 1.62 meters, her weight at exactly 47 kilograms. It goes deep into her Aquarius zodiac sign, noting for the fans that her ruling planets are Saturn and Uranus, and her lucky colors are blue, blue-green, gray, and black.
What's fascinating here is how the rumor mill operates in a complete vacuum of real information.
Because she stepped away, right?
Yes, she retired, capping her career around 2006 with a retrospective DVD, and stepped away from the public eye. So the internet simply fills in the blanks with crowdsourced assumptions. Fans crave a connection to an untouchable figure, so they catalog her lucky planets to feel close to her, completely ignoring the gritty reality of the career she actually lived.
And the polls on this site are hilarious in their absurdity. They reveal so much more about the audience than the actress.
Oh, the polls are ridiculous.
They have a poll asking if she is hot or not, and 100% of the voters clicked hot, with 0% for not hot. Then there's a poll about her lifestyle, where 100% of the voters just assume she takes substances recreationally.
Purely based on the characters she played or the stigma of the industry she was in.
But the absolute peak of internet absurdity is the section on her 2026 net worth.
The financial estimates perfectly encapsulate the unreliability of crowdsourced celebrity lore.
The site boldly claims that her net worth has grown significantly. It states that her estimated wealth includes a vast portfolio of stocks, multiple properties, and luxury goods like yachts and private airplanes.
Yachts and private planes.
You read that and think, wow, she really built an empire after she left the studios. And then right at the bottom of the exact same page, it estimates her total net worth at exactly $1,000.
$1,000 total, with yachts and private planes.
It makes no sense.
We have serious, documented journalistic evidence of her real-world workplace trauma, sitting right next to meaningless polls about her lucky numbers and imaginary private jets.
Her legacy has been completely fractured by the digital age.
The internet took a woman who survived a punishing, high turnover industry and turned her into an RPG character with conflicting stats.
So what does this all mean? We've gone from her debut as an 18-year-old at the dawn of the DVD boom, through her rise as the industry queen, playing everything from ninjas to mermaids,
Into the dark reality of unregulated film sets and unscripted assaults.
and finally into the bizarre funhouse mirror of modern internet FAQ pages. How do we synthesize all of this into something we can actually take away?
The Ami Ayukawa story is a profound case study in media consumption and the hidden human cost of production. The polished, fantastical final product, whether it's a lighthearted cosplay video or an intense psychological drama, completely masks the grueling, sometimes highly dangerous reality of what it took to capture that footage.
It hides the human being.
Furthermore, it shows us what happens when an actor finally steps away from the camera. Once a performer like her retires, the internet doesn't let the persona die. It simply flattens their real, complex human experiences into a list of meaningless stats, lucky colors, and ridiculous financial rumors, effectively erasing the real person who did the work.
It brings us to a challenge for you, the listener. The next time you are consuming any form of entertainment, whether it's mainstream Hollywood blockbusters, indie cinema, or niche mature media, I want you to think critically about what you are watching.
Remember the invisible machinery operating just out of frame.
Remember the real people behind the scenes, the long hours, the physical demands, and the potential cost of the performances you are enjoying.
Because the distance between the screen and reality is often much wider and much darker than we are comfortable admitting as an audience.
And I want to leave you with one final, provocative thought to mull over on your own. We've talked about how she spent years playing all these incredibly specific characters, roles designed entirely for the fleeting gratification of strangers on the other side of a screen, adapting her personality to fit whatever demographic the studio needed that day.
Continually shifting shapes.
Exactly. When a performer's entire legacy is built on being exactly what someone else wants them to be, what happens to their own true sense of identity when the cameras finally stop rolling forever? Think about that. Until next time, thanks for joining us on this deep dive.